Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Oaks Countdown on DRFTV. Nicole, Russo, and Ashley Mailloux here to take you through the latest on the road to the Kentucky Oaks. And we definitely have a bit of activity to recap. As you look at the current point standings toward the 14-horse Oaks starting gate, plus those who are kind of on the bubble at the moment, the names in bold are the runners who were in action over the weekend, and some new names on the list following 3 points races that just took place.
Yeah, vast majority participated in the Honeybee with the exception of White Rocks on that list, who did race at Turfway Park. But you talked about the movement. The last couple of weeks, certainly things have heated up in terms of now Quietside is in the number 1 spot. We saw a few weeks back Lacara bounce her way to the top, and at the time was tying Tenma, but the two fillies in front now, Good Cheer and Quietside, they're pretty far ahead of these two other fillies.
Yeah, and Quietside, as we'll take a look at her career here, she finally got her breakthrough win. In 6 starts, she's never been worse than third, and that includes last year finishing behind eventual champion Immersive, who is out of the Oaks picture in a couple of grade ones. Then we're in second to Good Cheer, who is considered the early Oaks favorite in the Goldenrod at Churchill. Second to Take Charge Milady in the Martha Washington. That one disappointed somewhat in the Honeybee, but meanwhile, Quietside took a good step forward here.
Absolutely. And I think you go back to the Martha Washington, maybe not the perfect of trips, but a really good ride this past weekend out at Oaklawn from Jose Ortiz, who climbed aboard this filly for the first time. And I think, the win is one thing on paper, Nicole, but I think another factor here is when you are a talented filly and you're constantly, settling for second or settling for third, it does affect confidence a little bit. And if anything, I have a feeling that this win is going to boost her confidence. And that's something that she will hopefully carry with her into what I assume would be a prep sometime in March.
Absolutely. And the way she did it too, I thought both she and the runner-up 5G, as we watched the stretch drive in the Honeybee, were both quite game. I think perhaps the track helped those who were forwardly placed, but take nothing away from either of these fillies. 5G was coming off a stakes win at a mile at Gulfstream and was game after setting the pressured pace. And the previously unbeaten Muhimma maybe a little green while finishing third.
Yeah, and it's interesting to kind of look at this because Oaklawn was a speed favoring surface over the weekend. They obviously had to make some cancellations and the track was unthawing for a few days and kind of was frozen. And then to see how it played, it definitely played to the speed. But I think when you look at the takeaways, Quietside got the right trip. She was close to the pace, and that's something that we typically see from her throughout her career so far, right, in those 6 starts. 5G, you talked about a good performance from her on the stretch out, and obviously being speedy helped her. And then when you look at Muhimma, I don't know what to take away from the performance. Obviously, everyone had their eyes on her in terms of her ability to this point, but she did not make the lead. She's typically been a little bit more forward. She couldn't necessarily keep pace with those others, and she is a big filly, and maybe it takes her a little bit more to get going. Would have liked to seen her close a little bit more, but again, it's not necessarily having your best performance, say, in the Honeybee. It's kind of working towards the first Friday in May.
100%. And that's what we're seeing with these fillies as they, continue to develop and face additional challenges. And certainly we'll see that moving forward. Now, from this weekend's other 2 points races, Queen Azteca, who won the UAE Oaks on Friday, is not currently an Oaks nominee. She could be supplemented before an April deadline, so we'll have to wait and see if they continue to campaign her overseas or decide she merits a shot in the U.S. White Rocks, meanwhile, was a front-running winner of the Cincinnati Trophy and Synthetic at Turfway Friday night. She opened kind of an insurmountable lead, but Admit was working on cutting the margin down late, and she's a little interesting to me. Had a good effort on dirt last year and a maiden behind Runnin' and Gunnin', who came back to win the Sunland Oaks. But White Rocks was super impressive, has run all of her starts on synthetic to date, so she will have dirt questions to answer.
Yeah, nice training job there by Arnaud Delacour with White Rocks and a great ride from Victor Carrasco. You talked about sort of opening up that big lead. I do think a little aggressive into the run to the first turn, but no one else was really keeping pace with her at that point. And I think that's why she was able to open up like that. She was able to hold on in there. And I don't think her rider really had to get after her until the stretch run. So I'd be curious to see what she does going forward. Nicole, I'm not even sure she really wants to be on the lead. When you look at her debut, she was very comfortable rating, had a troubled trip, was able to close from off of it. So kind of curious to see where she'll end up next, whether that's the Bourbonnette Oaks or another spot have a feeling it might be that, just based on you kind of mentioning the surface that she's stuck to this point. But I think we'll see a different dimension from her next time out.
Yeah, that's an interesting point about how earlier in her career she had some trouble and, overcame it to ran well from off the pace. In the meantime, though, 3 points races to come this first weekend of March. At the time of our filming, 2 have drawn their fields, a field of 9 for the Busher in New York, including the North Carolina-bred Ruthless winner Volleyball Princess, 7 in the Devona Dale, led by Suncoast winner La Cara, who we mentioned, and by the Queen's MG, who is a multiple graded winner last year at 2, but who might be more of a one-turn type. These races, both kind of intermediate steps at a mile, they're races where you want to see a horse keep moving forward, but I think they're true creps, and that the longer races into late March and early April, as you said, will tell us a lot more as we're looking for these horses to develop.
Especially when you look at the Devona Dale, like you mentioned, there's horses in there that are cutting back in distance. Ballerina d'Oro, you mentioned the name La Cara and how impressive she was when she took the Suncoast. But looking at the past performances, there are several that hit that point that you said right on the head. Now they have to stretch out, and it's not a true stretch out with that one turn, 1 mile at Gulfstream Park. So it's an interesting race to potentially pick up 50 points if you're the winner.
Well, we'll be back next week to recap all 3 of those races around the country and to take a look at how the Oaks picture is continuing to develop as we continue on the countdown to the Philly Classic. We will see you right here next week.